It was a crisp December morning in 1996 when Julie Busken, a vibrant and talented 21-year-old ballet student, vanished without a trace. She had just completed her degree at the University of Oklahoma and was preparing to move back home to Arkansas for the holidays. But on the morning of December 20th, her plans took a dark and tragic turn. Julie lived at an apartment complex in Norman, Oklahoma, near the university. That morning, she had dropped off a friend at the airport, then returned home. But sometime between 10 a.m. to 11:45 a.m., she was abducted. Her car, a 1994 red Honda Civic, was later found abandoned in her apartment complex parking lot, eerily suggesting that she had been taken against her will. As hours passed and no one could reach her, panic set in. Her friends and family knew something was terribly wrong. Julie wasn't the type to disappear without telling anyone. A search began, but there were no immediate clues about her whereabouts. That evening, the worst fears of Julie's loved ones came true. Her body was found near Lake Stanley Draper, about 15 miles away from her apartment. She had been sexually assaulted and shot in the head execution style. The scene suggested a calculated, brutal attack. For years, investigators worked tirelessly to find her killer, but the case grew cold. The evidence collected, including DNA, did not match anyone in the system at the time, leaving authorities without a suspect. Julie's family endured 8 long years of uncertainty, hoping for answers that never seemed to come. Then, in 2004, a breakthrough changed everything. Anthony Castillo Sanchez, a convicted burglar serving time in an Oklahoma prison, had his DNA entered into the FBI's CODIS database, and it was a perfect match to the DNA found at the crime scene. Sanchez had never been a suspect before. He had no known connection to Julie, but the forensic evidence left no doubt. He had been there that terrible day in December 1996. In 2006, Sanchez was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and murder, and was sentenced to death. Despite his conviction, he always insisted he was innocent, claiming that his father had committed the crime instead. However, no evidence supported this claim, and multiple appeals failed. After nearly 2 decades on death row, Sanchez was executed by lethal injection on September 21, 2023. Until his final moments, he maintained his innocence.
I had nothing to do with the murder of Julie Busken. I can't even imagine how they feel when they hear the name Anthony Sanchez. If this is what makes the Buskens happy and able to move on, I'm happy for them. But I'm innocent. I didn't kill their daughter.
But investigators remain convinced that justice had finally been served. Julie Busken's murder remains a heartbreaking case, but it also stands as a testament to the power of DNA forensic science in solving cold cases. For years, her family fought for justice, and thanks to advancements in criminal investigations, they finally got the answers they had been seeking. Her memory lives on, not only through the people who loved her, but also through scholarships in her name that support aspiring dancers, just like Julie had been before her life was stolen. In the spring of 1984, Laura Lee Salmon was an 18-year-old freshman at Middle Tennessee State University, MTSU, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. She was full of life, hope, and ambition. Laura was the kind of person who made an impression on everyone she met, kind, intelligent, and with dreams of a bright future ahead. But all of that was stolen from her in the most horrific way. On May 29, 1984, Laura spent time with her friends, enjoying what should have been just another day in her young life. No one knew that this would be the last time they would ever see her alive. Her mother, who had always been protective of her, expected Laura to call or return home. But as the hours dragged on and night turned into morning, worry crept into her heart. Something was wrong. Laura wasn't answering her phone. She hadn't come home. The next day, May 30th, 1984, a horror unfolded that shattered the town of Murfreesboro. Laura's body was found near a rock quarry, brutally murdered. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and dumped like she was nothing, like her life had meant nothing to the monster who took her away. Her family was devastated. The pain of losing a daughter, a sister, a friend in such a violent, senseless way was unbearable. The town mourned with them, but mourning wasn't enough. They needed justice. The suspect who walked free. Almost immediately, police suspected someone. David Kyle Gilley, a former high school classmate of Laura. Something about his behavior, his history, and the circumstances surrounding Laura's last day pointed to him. But there was one major problem. Back in 1984, forensic science was not what it is today. The evidence they had was circumstantial. It wasn't enough to make an arrest. Gilley went free. For 16 years, Laura's family had to live knowing her killer was out there, free. Living his life while Laura lay in a grave, her future stolen forever. In the year 2000, everything changed. DNA technology had advanced, and detectives decided to re-examine the evidence they had collected from Laura's body and the crime scene. And this time, they found what they had been looking for all along: a DNA match directly linking David Kyle Gilley to Laura's murder. He thought he had gotten away with it. He had moved to Florida, started a new life, as if he hadn't stolen one in 1984. But science had caught up with him. Authorities tracked him down and arrested him. He was extradited to Tennessee, finally forced to face the consequences of what he had done. In the summer of 2006, after 22 years of waiting, Laura's family finally saw her killer stand trial. The evidence was undeniable. The DNA proved what everyone had suspected for years. Gilley was the one who had assaulted and murdered Laura that night in 1984. The jury found him guilty of premeditated first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Laura's mother, for her friends, for the town of Murfreesboro, it was justice, delayed but finally delivered. Even though justice was finally served, nothing could bring Laura back. She was only 18. She had dreams, a future, a life waiting for her, and it was all taken away in one cruel, senseless act. Her family has never stopped loving her, never stopped missing her,